So let's talk US, Israel, Middle East for a second, and just the latest articles coming out of there, and discuss the tensions and the weird relationships happening at the moment in that part of the world. So we've currently got Saudi Arabia, surprise, surprise, MBS, hosting a Gulf US summit on May the 14th, part of US President Donald Trump's first visit to Saudi Arabia during his second term. At the same time, he is not stopping in Israel while he's busy with his Middle East tour, which some in Israel see as a snub of Israel. Why not pop into Israel when you're in the neighborhood? It kind of makes sense to do that with your bestie, but it's not happening. But his focus here is trade with Saudi Arabia, and he has a very good relationship, him and Jared Kushner and his family, with Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince. So there's a lot of reason for that, and they'll be discussing the way forward between the two nations and commerce and benefits for both sides. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens and what comes out announcement wise when he's there meeting with these leaders. At the same time, US ambassador visits Judea and Samaria and says whoever does not stand with you does not stand with God, which is interesting for a US ambassador to say while being in Judea and Samaria. But I'm really glad they're referring to it as Judea and Samaria, biblical names, instead of the West Bank. IRGC chief threatens to open the gates of hell on Israel and the US. Again, with the biblical language here and talking about things like the gates of hell, for me, always makes me smile, sitting at this point in the end of time and history and what's happening worldwide at the moment. Iran's IRGC chief Hossein Salami issues a grave threat to the US and Israel, warning of devastating retaliation if either one acts against Iran. The kind of devastating retaliation they've tried twice before against Israel, both times really embarrassing themselves publicly. Sorry. Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Salami warned this on Thursday. They would retaliate against Israel and the US. I'm issuing a serious warning. If you make one wrong move, we will open up the gates of hell on you. Sit down and stay in your place. We have made extensive preparations. There are serious warnings to Zionist officials and to US officials. The criminal prime minister of the Zionist regime talks a lot these days. Threatening Iran, he added. If you make a mistake, we'll act on you in a way that you forget the true promise 1 and 2, he said, in reference to Iran's previous attacks on Israel, which were quite pathetic. Don't count on THAAD. Every time you fire a projectile, we will fire more than you, Salami threatened. So, again, they're making outright in-your-face threats, and Trump still wants to negotiate with them about a nuclear deal. Why not just take them at their word and deal with it decisively? But that's just me. Trump proposes to rename the Persian Gulf, because he likes renaming maps, sparking outrage amongst Arab nations. In a move that ignited fierce debate across the Middle East and beyond, President Donald Trump proposed renaming the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Gulf during his upcoming trip to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. The suggestion, reported by the New York Times on May the 11th, 2025, has united Iranians in opposition, highlighting the deep historical and cultural significance of the name Persian Gulf. The Persian Gulf, a vital waterway bordered by Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, has been known by its current name since 550 BC, during the reign of Cyrus the Great, whose Persian Empire stretched from India to Western Europe. The name reflects the historical dominance of ancient Persia, which is modern-day Iran, whose southern coast runs along the entire length of the Gulf. For Iranians, the term Persian Gulf is not merely geographical, but a symbol of their cultural and historical heritage, fiercely defended by governments from the pre-revolutionary era of the Shah to the present Islamic Republic. In contrast, many Arab nations, including Saudi Arabia and the UAE have long advocated for the term Arabian Gulf to reflect their own regional identity and influence. But the name's been there from 550 BC, and it's got a very real reason for being there with the influence the Persian Empire had on the region. And again, they have a good argument that it's time for change, but it's interesting that Trump has decided on this entire trip to only refer to it as the Arabian Gulf, not the Persian Gulf, inflaming Iran once again, who they're trying to have talks with at the same time. It's really interesting. US Ambassador Huckabee denies nonsense report that Trump could recognize the Palestinian state. On Saturday, he strongly denied a report suggesting this, and in the upcoming Middle East trip next week when it's intended to happen. Responding to the J-Post's tweet on X, Huckabee wrote, "Jerusalem Post needs better sources than this unidentified source. My 4-year-old grandson Teddy is more reliable, and take it from Teddy, this report in the Jerusalem Post is nonsense. Israel doesn't have a better friend than POTUS." The source added, if an announcement of American recognition of the state of Palestine were made, it will be the most important declaration that will change the balance of power in the Middle East, and more countries will join the Abraham Accords. That is what Trump wants. Last week, Trump promised to make a very important announcement during this upcoming trip, which will not include a stop in Israel. He later clarified that the announcement would not be about trade, but something else, and it's going to be truly earth-shattering and a positive development for this country. What could it be? Waiting with bated breath to see what's going to be earth-shattering and nothing to do with trade while he's on a trip with the Arab nations in the Middle East. What else could it be but something about the Palestinian state? Maybe it's not the Palestinian state, but what else could be earth-shattering? Because if he did speak out for the Palestinian state, the two-state solution, and he did weigh on that side, it would cause chaos with Israel-US relations, but it would definitely keep a lot of the Arab nations happy and bring them on board to the Abraham Accords. And it could lead to a strengthening of that existing agreement by someone else in the very nearby future. So is it a possibility that this could be what it is, even though they're denying it so strongly, that little 4-year-old Teddy might be wrong in this regard? Absolutely. It's definitely one to watch and not just throw out because Huckabee says so. Huckabee calls Netanyahu-Trump relationship strained over opposing Mideast solutions nonsense. According to sources who communicated with NBC on Sunday, the relationship between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and United States President Donald Trump has become strained. Now, it's been publicly strained before, especially when Biden was president, and there was a whole strained session between Trump publicly and Netanyahu. So it's not that it's not something that'll happen. The sources include 2 United States officials, 2 diplomats from the Middle East, and 2 additional individuals knowledgeable about ongoing tensions. However, their objectives diverge significantly. Netanyahu aims to eliminate Iran's nuclear facilities. Trump sees an opportunity to mitigate the Iranian threat through the establishment of a nuclear agreement. Not that that's worked in the past. United States Ambassador to Israel, Huckabee, publicly dismissed claims of tension between the 2 leaders via social media, saying that the partnership remains strong. Additionally, Israel's intensification of military operations in the Gaza Strip has deviated from Trump's goal of achieving a ceasefire and developing the Riviera of the Middle East. Tension number 1. A further point of discord emerged when Trump unexpectedly introduced a ceasefire proposal involving the Houthi militant group, prompting Netanyahu to assert that Israel would defend itself. Tension number 2. Iran's nuclear solution. Tension number 3. According to the United States official, an additional source familiar with the situation, Trump has expressed frustration regarding Netanyahu's expansion of Israeli Defense Force operations in Gaza. Netanyahu experienced considerable frustration over Trump's reluctance to endorse airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities and the continuation of negotiations, according to all sources consulted by NBC. So I see a lot of tension, even though Huckabee says there's none. I personally see a lot of tension and a deviation away from each other on stated goals. Even with the hostage release thing, America has negotiated with Hamas, and Hamas is saying they're willing to release the last American Israeli hostage. So they'll give the American back. What about the other hostages? Why not insist that all the hostages be released at once, like they said in the beginning? That's now no longer a pushing point right now. It's interesting how this divergence is growing, and at the same time a push towards a connection with all the Arab nations. So definitely worth watching, and yes, there is definitely tension. Here's another example. US official warns that if Israel doesn't wake up, the US will advance the Saudi deal without it. Now, up to now, for years, the Saudi deal has been integrally connected to normalization with Israel. Now it would seem that that's no longer the case. A senior US official issued a stark warning to Israel, signaling a potential shift in US foreign policy in the Middle East. According to reports, the official stated, if Israel does not adjust its current stance, the United States is prepared to move forward with a significant diplomatic agreement with Saudi Arabia, sidelining Israel in the process. This development, described as the deal of the millennium by some, underscores growing US frustration with Israel's approach to regional diplomacy, particularly regarding hostage negotiations and broader strategic alignment. The proposed US-Saudi deal is part of a broader effort by the Trump administration to stabilize the Middle East and counter Iranian influence. The whole fact that he doesn't want to go and bomb the nuclear program of the Iranians back into the Stone Age and now suddenly wants to work out a deal could be because Saudi Arabia has a normalization agreement with Iran. They're back into talking with each other and agreeing with each other. So if they want to have a good deal with Saudi, then they should make sure they don't antagonize Iran too much, even though everybody, including Saudi, wants Iran contained. So it's a very complicated, diverse situation in the Middle East that you've got to try and navigate. But in the process, it would appear that the relationship between the US and Israel is doing this. And it's very obvious for many reasons. But definitely worth keeping your eyes on. And I, for one, will be watching from the 14th what's going to be said and declared and revealed by Trump when he gets there. This earth-shattering, amazing statement that he's going to make. What is it going to be? What? It can only be interesting. It can only play into everything that's setting up the New World Order and the beast system and everything for the final week of Daniel that we stand on the precipice of right now. Exciting times. Jesus coming back for his bride at any moment, and a reason for us to keep a smile on our dial while we wait and serve the Lord in the field daily. Keep praying for Israel. Keep your eyes on the Middle East and the skies, and keep sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ with absolutely everyone you meet at every opportunity that you have. Shalom.